1. Good evening. My name is Terry Alford, and welcome to Our Story. It is so exciting to know that for so many of you, as you unwind or begin enjoying your dinners tonight, you've welcomed us into your homes, as you always do, to listen to what's happening in the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor, and for that matter, for the entire east side of Buffalo. Our Story is just one more forum to keep you all informed. Again, Our Story will air at this time every Thursday evening right here on Waffle Radio Power 96.5 FM. Our Story will feature guests, unknown facts, treasure stories, and themes that provide insight into the historic Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor. Join us and learn about the latest happenings in the corridor and meet the proud and resilient men and women living or conducting business within and around our historic neighborhoods on the east side of Buffalo. Tonight, our guests, I'm very happy to have him here. A friend of mine, friends of so many of you too. I'm very proud that he decided to come and be a part of our show. Mr. Karl Shallowhorn. Karl is a mental health advocate, educator, speaker, and coach. His primary role is as special advisor for the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, a federal agency that focuses on behavioral health, awareness, education, and policy. Karl has a proven track record of delivering engaging and informative presentations to a wide-ranging audiences across the United States. His combination of lived experience and clinical expertise makes him a unique resource to our community. Welcome, Karl.
Hey, Terry. Thank you so much for having me.
Good to see you. So as we always do here on Our Story, we allow our listening audience to learn a little bit about our guests. So do you mind briefly telling us a little more about your story?
Sure. My story, as it pertains to the work that I do, began many years ago when I was in college. As you mentioned in the introduction, I'm a person with lived experience with mental health and addiction, long-term recovery from addiction. But it started when I was in college, and I had what's known as an episode, a psychotic episode, where I became mentally ill. Not ever had any experience like that before. It kind of came almost out of the blue. I spent a number of years going in and out of hospitals, trying to really just get it together, as they say. But I wasn't really doing well. I was using drugs. I was not a very good patient, I guess you could say. But finally I had an intervention by a counselor who directed me in the way of going to 12-step meetings. I started a 12-step program in 1988 and have been with that program ever since. But that was really the catalyst to me getting involved as becoming a counselor. I became an addiction counselor in 1992. I went to school at ECC. I did the coursework to get my credential. And that started my work in behavioral health. So that's what I've been doing. And I also worked in higher education for a while, but primarily my career has been centered on behavioral health.
Oh, great. Okay. So could you tell us why you decided to pursue a career in this field?
Well, it's interesting. We have a saying in my program that says, we only keep what we have by giving it away.
Yeah. Okay.
We only keep what we have by giving it away. So at the time when I was early in recovery, I thought to myself, I really liked the idea of being around this atmosphere of helping people and being around people who are positive and trying to do things with their lives. So I wanted to do something along those lines. So I thought, well, why don't I do this and pursue this and see where it could take me? And I really didn't have an idea about if it would work or not. Of course, I was just kind of just seeing how it goes, but it did. It worked very well. My first job was at Buffalo General Hospital back in the day. They had an addiction clinic at the time, and I started working there. And at that time, things were doing different than they are now, a lot different. We've learned a lot since then. Of course, that was over 30 years ago. But at the time, though, it was really exciting to be able to get into the field because things were changing,
right,
and things were getting better.
Great. So you already talked about the schooling and training that you received. For those, especially young people that are looking to get in the field, what would you advise, or in terms of encouraging to pursue careers in this field?
Well, first and foremost, Terry, I have to say one thing that is evident these days is we don't have enough providers of color.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
There is a severe shortage of people, black people, people of brown and black people in the field of behavioral health. We know that only about 4% of psychologists, 2% of psychiatrists are people of color. I think it's like 22% or so of social workers are people of color. So we have a lack of people like us that are working the field that people can relate to. So what happens is when someone goes to get help, they may not see someone like themselves, which is a barrier, right? So what I would encourage young people to do is, if they're listening now, is to consider going to this field because the doors are open. I mean, so many of these providers out there are looking for people to work in this field who are representing maybe the folks who may not be so willing to get help, whether it be working in a community-based provider or even private practice. But this is really, and like I said, the doors are open even with scholarships and everything else. There's a lot of availability.
Right. I was just watching the news just last night. I think they were focused on Fredonia State University, and they were talking about the Sunnydale system and the cuts they were making. But what was encouraging to hear is like these schools were looking to promote and bring in more curriculum around mental health. And I don't know why that is. I can, think and see and think about why that is. But what do you think there's like this influx now, this interest in mental health? What do you think?
I think there's a lot of reasons right now, Terry. First of all, we're in a crisis.
Yeah.
We're in a real crisis when it comes to mental health. If you look at the statistics and you look at the rise in depression and anxiety, especially amongst our young people, we are, it's interesting, Terry, before the pandemic happened, when the pandemic first started, myself and a number of other people said we're going to be experiencing a tsunami. I use this word tsunami of mental health crises with young people, and we're seeing that. So we need more emphasis on mental health so we can deal with the ever-increasing problems that young people are having, whether it be dealing with issues of, like I said, anxiety, depression, substance use, and even the increase in suicide. These are all things that are happening at levels that we've never seen before.
Right. It's interesting you say that because when we talk about, those health issues that really impact negatively people of color, demographics of color especially, you always focus on the things that we know, like the diabetes or the smoking issues, nicotine, or you name cancers, various different forms of cancers, And there's a reason for all those things happening in our communities. But what we never really talk about is the mental health. And I think I read somewhere that the biggest issue, especially in the black community these days, is the mental health crisis.
Well, there's a lot of stigma. Like I said, I use the word stigma. And the problem is that people are oftentimes, mind you, Terry, this is historic right here, right? Historical. You talk about the stigma of mental health in the black community. We're going back to even, slavery. There was so much of an emphasis on being strong and resilient that you can't show weakness. You can't show any sign of being vulnerable. So you had to kind of just man up, as we say, right? But in the end, that is proven to be difficult because people now, it's become a learned behavior that people don't want to show any sign of weakness for fear of being taken advantage of. So, for instance, if you talk about someone now who is saying, well, maybe I need help, they might be reluctant because they don't want to be seen as being different. Or we use the word crazy or whatever, right? But what we have to do is we have to get rid of this misconception that seeking help is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. And there are more people who are willing to do that these days than ever, but we still have a ways to go.
Right. So, your experiences involves, especially young people, it's many different programs and initiatives, events that you've provided to raise awareness about stigmatization, about the crisis amongst our populations, especially our young people. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that and some of the things that you provide and your agency provides to the community?
Sure. Well, SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration, so we're a federal agency. So a lot of the work that we do is on a national level. And we do some programming locally. But I want to talk actually about the organization that I came from before I was at SAMHSA, which is the Mental Health Advocates of Western New York, otherwise formerly known as Mental Association Erie County. So Mental Health Advocates of Western New York is located on Broadway, right above the Jericho Road Community Center. And when I was at that program, I supervised a team of youth peer advocates. I was a director of youth programs. And my team of youth peer advocates, they're all between the ages of 18 and 30.
Okay.
And they're able to go into schools and do work with students and basically educate and provide information on mental health. They're able to have groups around mental health to educate students so they can become more aware and more willing to seek help if they need it, but also just to normalize the conversation about mental health. Our young people are more knowledgeable than ever because I think a lot of it is available through a lot of means, like social media. People talk about social media being a bad thing. Well, it's not always a bad thing. There's been some good advantages to it too, but I think in the same respect, it's not going anywhere. So I think with the YPAs, as they're known as, youth peer advocates, go in and they try to talk to the students and they try to let them know that it is possible. One thing I want to mention, though, is that also there's a new text line that they have, a chat line, that people can go to, young people between the age of 12 and 18 can go to get help if they need it.
Oh, that's great. How do you recruit these young people that you work with and train up?
Basically, there's a process, just a regular hiring process.
Okay.
We have an application process that they go through. They have to be credentialed. So they get credentialed through New York State through an organization called Families Together in New York State. And they receive what's known as a Youth Peer Advocate credential. And when they get that credential, they are able to work in a credentialed setting. They're able to provide these services, and they are just like any other professional.
That's great. So let me just make this quick announcement. So as most of you know, the month of April is observed as National Health Awareness Month. So what we try to do this entire month is to feature some stories around, the ills and those issues related to health that really impact negatively our demographics, people of color, especially residing on the east side of Buffalo. So we're now at the end of April. However, health concerns will continue to be a focus of conversation here with the Our Story radio show. So we will continue to present guests in the coming weeks and months who will offer information and guidance on health issues that primarily negatively impact our community and the hardest. So be sure to tune in every Thursday evening at this time to learn more. So what you might learn may actually save your life. We talk about mental health issues, and again, our guest tonight is Karl Shallowhorn. His primary role is as special advisor for the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration here in our area. He is an advocate for mental health and one of the preeminent experts when it comes to such things as stigmatization and health issues, especially as it applies to young people. So again, we're happy to have him here tonight. What other important events or activities coming up that you might want to relate to our listening audience, Karl?
Well, we're coming up on May.
Yes.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So during the month of May, there will be a lot of conversation you'll be seeing, whether it be through social media, in the media, local providers, focusing on mental health. Now, mind you, as far as I'm concerned, every day is a mental health day.
Sir.
We use that term mental health day, right? But right. May is a month that we focus on mental health to raise awareness, to let people know about the resources that are available, of which there are many. Let me just mention a couple of things, Terry.
Sure.
Too. One thing is the crisis line, suicide crisis line. That is a national number that people can call. It's 988. 988 is a number that people can call if they're feeling at risk of taking their lives. Now, this is something, Terry, that people don't always want to talk about because suicide is a very sensitive topic. But people need to know what they could do if they need help. So that number, 988, you call that number, and you'll be put through to a local resource that if you need help or if someone you know needs help, they can get it. And so also, as I mentioned, Mental Health Advocates West New York, that number is 716-886-1242. And if you call them and say you need help, say finding a counselor or a support group, you can call that number and they would be able to help you with that as well.
You already mentioned about the issues around the high rates of suicide, especially amongst our young people. I know we still have some time here, but what are some of the things that, if you're talking to someone who's looking to take their life or you're talking to someone who knows someone who's thinking about that, what are some of the things that you advise that they do besides just calling 988 and the other service line?
Well, first and foremost, if you are with someone who is considering taking life, first of all, we never leave a person who's suicidal alone. That made me seem like a common sense kind of thing, but it's true. Also, if you're thinking of taking your life, I would say certainly use that number, but also remember there's hope.
Yes.
And see, we know that oftentimes suicide is a very impulsive behavior. And even in my own experience, I'm a survivor of an attempt. And so I know for me, when I think back on my experience, I was in a state of despair where I didn't think there was any help for me. Of course, luckily, I was able to get the help that I needed. But what it took was just seeing it through, getting through that moment and getting to the other side. And also ask for help. One thing I was afraid to do at the time was ask for help when I realized it was right there for me. So if someone needs help, we have people that can talk to, whether it be counselors or therapists, faith leaders. There are all kinds of people we can talk to get help if we need it.
I think we've all been there, at different stages of despair, where you think you have no way out but considering taking your own life and things. And I appreciate your honesty with that, because I think what we don't do enough is talk about these issues, talk out in the open and publicly and boldly about this. I think you might have mentioned it earlier in our conversation. The more opportunity we can talk and share, the better opportunity we have to save a life.
Let me just say, Terry, too, the thing that is really gets me and makes me feel for people is that oftentimes, sometimes people feel there's no hope. They're in a situation that they can't get out of, whether it be financially or relationships or just poverty. We're in a very poor city, and so we're in situations where you feel you just can't get out of it. You can't let that be the kind of thing that takes you to the place of that despair. Especially when there are people who can help. And the thing that is interesting, though, Terry, is that if you know where to go, then you're better able to manage and maintain your mental health in a way that perhaps you didn't know about. I think for a lot of folks, we talk about the idea of self-care, right? Self-care is almost a cliche these days, but there's so many aspects of self-care which are really true. Learning about things you can do for your mental health to take care of yourself in ways that are very accessible. Things that you can do that aren't hard to do, don't cost a lot of money, that you can do to take care of yourself better so you can feel better mentally and emotionally.
That's all good advice and good comments that you have there. So, when I think about the Heritage Corridor, for instance, and you think we like to talk in terms of histories and all those we consider strong people that, as we say, shoulders we stand on today. And I'm not going to ring out all the names, so many of us know who these people are. And we celebrate, them as champions. We celebrate them as advocates for social change. You can't imagine the things that may have gone through, that we today take for granted, that we don't have to go through. And for me, they serve as examples of the resiliency and tenacity, the fact that most of these folks are people of hope. Okay, that's what sort of kept them going,
right?
Even despite the many challenges and barriers that were put up against them in many cases. Could you maybe speak to the history of hope and in terms of why that is so important for us as a people?
Yeah, Terry. When you think about hope, we're talking about something that you hold on to when things are really hard to manage in terms of just your outlook on life. I'll just say, for me, when I was really struggling, I had to just hold on to something that made me feel like it could get better. Things could get better. And there were times in my life when I didn't know if they could.
Right.
Honestly, I didn't know if they could. But I also had to have faith. And, of course, my faith comes from the Creator.
Yeah.
Right. I really rely on my faith a lot to get through the tough times. So when I had the ability to kind of tap into that, that's what got me through. Not everybody subscribes to that, but a lot of people do, I know. And I know many people who, as you said, our predecessors had those same beliefs. But I think when you talk about hope, hope is something that is essential in recovery we talk about. Hope is an essential ingredient to be able to use it to see how you can get through these situations in a way that are manageable and you can be successful.
So it's warms my heart knowing, that there's so many people in our lives who, see what's going on with us. In many cases, we don't see ourselves. We despair. We are going down the track of despair. And I always applaud those who I call the nurturers or those folks who kind of like take care of us. And I think some of the hardest things that we do as caretakers, too, is stepping in during those times where the people that we love and care about can't do for themselves. Can you speak to the importance of those type of folks in our lives?
Certainly caregivers. We call them caregivers, right?
Yes, sir.
Our caregivers are the people that oftentimes will take care of others and do it in a way that is selfless. Right? Putting other people's needs before their own. We all need someone to lean on, like we say, right?
Yes.
From time to time. We're all going to, at some point in our lives, we're going to need somebody to take care of us. And I think what happens is our caregivers are essential, and they possess their own strength.
Right.
Right? And so, but we also have to let them help us. Sometimes people don't want to take the help.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to say, I need the help. And if you got someone who's willing to take care and do something for you, don't deny it. Accept it. And I think about even myself, when I was really struggling for many years, I was very fortunate. I had parents who cared for me. I needed that help. I had an extended family who cared for me.
Right.
I had a lot of very fortunate situations in my life, Terry, that some people don't have. But when you have someone who is really in need of help, and they've got someone who's reaching out to help them, they should accept that because it's a real privilege.
Are there programs or activities designed to help caretakers in this role?
Mental Health Advocates West New York has a family support program. So for family members who have a loved one who is managed with a mental health condition, that's one organization. Also, National Alliance of Mental Illness is a local organization. NAMI Buffalo in Erie County, NAMI Buffalo in West New York is an organization that has family members that learn about mental health. They have family education groups. They have support groups to support caregivers.
That's fantastic. So as we get close to the end of our show, I want to give you an opportunity, Karl, maybe as the last word, some good advice or final message to those that may be listening that may be distressed or those that are taking care of people who are distressed.
I'd say my main message is just don't give up. Don't give up. Sometimes, like the old saying goes, it's darkest before the dawn. And you just never know when you're going to turn that corner. I know I'm using a lot of slang here, sayings,
okay.
but it's true. Like, if you really think about it, sometimes we don't know when things are going to get better, but if we just hang tight and they will get better if you just allow things to happen and reach out for that help that you need, because help is available if you need it.
So I'm going to, again, repeat what's coming up in the month of the remainder of this month of April. This coming Saturday at 136 Broadway, right near the corner of Michigan and Broadway, the Michigan Street African American Heritage Corridor will be again promoting a cycling and bike event designed to get folks out and ready for the cycling season, beginning in the springtime into the summer. So we'll be having a number of different vendors and other organizations here to talk about cycling, to get your bike tuned up for free. We'll have other activities designed to get you excited about the upcoming season of cycling. So we encourage you to come down to 136 Broadway this coming Saturday, April the 27th, beginning at 10 o'clock right through 3 o'clock. Again, that's at 136 Broadway, our annual cycling event. Again, we thank Karl Shallowhorn for being our guest tonight. For more information about what we discussed tonight, as well as upcoming events, we encourage you to go to our website, MichiganStreetBuffalo.org, to learn more about the corridor, as well as to even look at past and listen to past Our Story shows that you may have missed. I'm going to allow Karl to again repeat some of those important numbers for those folks who are in need of help as we close the show. I think it's very important that you continue sharing that information for those people in need. So, Karl, do you want to talk about those phone numbers again?
Sure. The 988, it's a suicide and crisis lifeline number, 988. And also Mental Health Advocates of West New York is 716-886-1242.
Mm-hmm. Thank you again, Karl, for being our guest tonight. We really appreciate you. My hope is that we can bring you back on to the show. That's the end of our show tonight. We thank again Karl for being our guest. We encourage you to come back next week at this time on WUFO 96.5 to listen to our next Our Story that we want to present to you. So thank you for listening tonight, and we'll see you next week. I think I was a little early by a couple minutes. That's okay. Thank you, Karl.
All right, Terry.
You let me ask you questions I didn't even include.
That's all right. That's right. It worked out great.
Yes, sir.